Welcome back. This is Gender Discourse, and today we are talking about the misuse of the dowry law. Well, just a few days ago, we did hear Krishna Tirath, the Minister for Women and Child Development, say that government is mulling over a proposal to review or amend some provisions of the Act. Now, when you have a statement like that, that means there can be no smoke without fire, right, Ranjana ji? So, which means something is there.
Taken dowry, have really been proven that they have taken dowry and they are also suffering because of that. So I think instead of going into the root of it and trying to look at dowry as a practice in our society and trying to eradicate that, people are trying to now dilute the law. I think Soumya gave a very good example that, you know, you have diluted the law in Andhra, but what is happening? Because cases are increasing, people will go to the courts, people will file their, to the police FIR. So I think this is something which is, even the minister, I think needs to review and rethink about it, that, you know, is it, so many laws are there which have been not used, misused, whatever, but why it is that the dowry law is the only one on which everybody is after, you know, why? No, there is reason. No, but look at the standing committee of the parliament and trying to work on this whole issue and trying to take the views. We also went and made our presentation to the standing committee of the parliament. I think we have to go by facts. Somebody should produce the number of people who have misused the law. You know, somebody has, because we have produced number of people who are using the law or number of people who have been given protection of the law. That data is already there. And also on the other side increase. So I think I think you produced a very funny data about suicide. By that data, the people who are committing suicide in Japan, in Sweden, men are always bigger in numbers in terms of suicide than the women. All these countries. No, but there is no dowry practice in those countries. So how can suicide data be related with dowry deaths or dowry law or dowry complaint or IPC 498A? How can you relate the two? This is a very funny way of proving that many men are committing suicide because women are going and using 498A.
Well, let me see what Wasif would have to say to that.
Let's see, first of all, see, when you're talking about specific proof of saying that it is being misused or being used, I will once again say, just because the cases are increasing doesn't mean the harassment is increasing. My answer to that is, because marriage disputes are increasing, these cases are increasing. Once the marriage has failed, people want to extract much and much from this failed marriage through this provision. That is the only reason, not that harassment is increasing. That means all the expenditure by the government in the last 50 years has gone waste. And the society has actually digressed instead of getting progress. That is point number one. Number two, please don't confuse dowry death, 498A and dowry with it. For dowry death, there is 304B and it has to be dealt there only. For dowry, yes, that is a malaise with the society. I am totally with you on this. It has to be eradicated. But where have you addressed the issue of extravagant marriages? Exchange of gifts, registration of gifts. You address that, you implement that. I will tell you that dowry will drastically come down.
I think just yesterday there was a report of the Times of India which said that now if anybody goes to register their marriage, first of all they'll have to prove whether they have taken any dowry or not. So maybe that
statement. There is no exchange of dowry.
Right. Well, before we go any further, Soumya, let's take a look at what some people had to say when we went across and spoke to them, whether they feel that is this law being misused at all. These are the common people, so let's see what they had to say.
498A को normally ladies ने उसको एक actually it's more of a profession which has they have started taking it as a profession, harassing the in-laws without any logical reason, and police support them like anything. I mean, though the statistics speak against the Dowry Act, but I still feel that this act does give women who are actually troubled by their by their family, it gives them a power. So I don't feel it should be changed or abolished.
People say that it's been misused, and it's been misused against their own husbands at times, but I think that's something that they just want to use against women.
डॉरी एक्ट 90% तो सब फॉल्स है पूरा, क्योंकि ये ना सब लेडीज जरा ऐसा हस्बैंड वाइफ में तो होते चलता रहता है, परिवार में रहते हैं तो चलते रहता है, तो ये मिसयूज ज़्यादा होता है इसका।
डॉरी एक्ट डेफिनेटली मिसयूज होने लगा है आजकल, और डेफिनेटली अगर ये मिसयूज हो रहा है और जो मिसयूज कर रहे हैं उनको पनिशमेंट मिलना ही चाहिए।
सडनली जो मेट्रोपॉलिटन सिटीज में तो मिसयूज ही हो रहा है डाउरी का, क्योंकि गांव में भी डाउरी होती है और अपनी एक्सपेक्टेशन से ज़्यादा होता है, लेकिन डाउरी में जो पंचायत सिस्टम है थोड़ा बहुत, और वो भी 1% जो एजुकेटेड है गाँव के और वे बाहर सेटल हो जाते हैं, उन्हीं के केस बनते हैं, अदरवाइज तो ऐसा कुछ गांव में देखने को नहीं मिलता। तो शहरों में इसका टोटली मिसयूज हो रहा है, इसमें चेंज ही लाया जाए तो ज़्यादा बेटर है कि जो डाउरी दी जाती है उसकी लिस्ट इमीडिएटली कंसर्न एसएचओ को दे दी जाए।
कि इस चीज़ का गलत यूज़ हुआ है और इस वजह से कई लोग आत्महत्या भी कर रहे हैं, इसकी वजह से किया है उन्होंने। और चूँकि ये ऐसा एक्ट है कि टोटली लेडीज़ को सुरक्षित रखने के लिए किया गया था, लेकिन ये चीज़ें लड़कियां जो है इस चीज़ को गलत वे में ले रही हैं और अब वो इसकी आड़ में लड़कों को शोषित कर रहे हैं। डाउरी से संबंधित केस में अच्छे परिणाम भी आ रहे हैं और बुरे भी आ रहे हैं। अच्छे परिणाम इस सेंस में आ रहे हैं कि औरतों को, महिलाओं को एक सुरक्षा का आधार मिला है कि कानून में कहीं ना कहीं जाके उनकी बात सुनी जाएगी, लेकिन कई मायनों में, कई केस में ये भी देखने में आ रहा है कि महिलाओं के परिवार वाले इसका दुरुपयोग करने में महिलाओं का साथ देते हैं और कहीं कहीं परिवार बिखरने की।
Well, mixed reactions over there, but yes, a number of them did believe that the law is being misused. So how did you react to these common people?
I as a state acquire land, and subsequently that land is being questioned by the various courts, and I have to give back that land. So we can say very easily that the state is misusing the Land Acquisition Act.
But they're not arresting people.
Right. So the word misuse is one. Second is that men also go take the use of the provision under the Divorce Act of cruelty. Do we, and I don't know whether women collectives say that the men are misusing that provision of law. So because it's gender neutral. So use is depending upon the interpretations we give as and when we like it. But courts has to interpret the law. That's the job of the courts are. And they interpret the law as and when it is being placed by the investigating agency. And investigating agency here again is the police. My point is very simple, is that the law gives women a protection from violence which is being faced. And let's understand the violence which a woman can face. It need not necessarily be by the husband, by the relatives. There is one particular case I remember from Gurgaon. A lady came, and and the Punjab and Haryana High Court has commented that lady because when she filed a complaint, she did not include her mother-in-law. So I was talking to her. So why did not you include? Rest of the people are including. I mean, she never used to abuse me or do anything. And it's recorded in the judgment of the Punjab and Haryana High Court that that's how the complaints are to be registered. Now these things cannot be taught. This is the job of the police to, so that's why we call the chaff and the grain has to be separated. The second part of the whole debate of whether we should be having a law as such or not is not the question, I think, here. This law has to be there because it gives protection. If this law doesn't go, then that person who loses the daughter has to take recourse to other provisions of law. Here the life is important, and I think we have to understand the value of life and the violence being perpetrated on her, and the violence is of various natures.
True.
even this cruelty, if it is quite grey, if you want understand, it is not defined very, it's not defined within 498A. That's the major problem. If my suggestion would be to the government to define this, remove these grey areas within this 498A, which the courts also have said over a long period of time. And it's difficult to define the various provisions. But the Domestic Violence Act of 2005, the civil law has defined it. So you can make those things as clearer.
Yeah.
The last part is, how do we make the police understand how to register a case when a woman comes before them saying that this is, and there are various channels from which a police gets information. It can be through a woman who is dialing through 100. Now that can be a very normal husband and wife problem, and she dials because that's the only recourse she has. But let's also understand, a woman ultimately goes and files a case of 498A as a last recourse of all these reconciliation and things and all that.
I don't know what is the basis of this.
Right, Ranjit ji, I think what is, we are coming down to the fact that it is the police who is actually not being able to do what it is supposed to do, at least as far as these cases are concerned.
Well, I think the police has to do the investigation, and also as they have to decipher. When the woman is aggrieved, she comes, her family comes with her. She's never alone in the police station. First of all, it has to be her parents, her relations, and when she's complaining, they have to really look at the different kinds of scenarios. If somebody is living in Karnataka and complaint is in Delhi, and then that person is also roped in, then I think this is not justified. So that kind of a judgment police will have to make in terms of, but then to say, because police is failing to make that judgment, in many cases, I would still stand by the police and say they're not making long judgment, because when you review, people said so many old people are in the jail, children are in jail, all that. We have done study of jails also, and we know that the people with the crime are only in jail. People who are not committed the crime are not in jails, in this kind of, in dowry cases. That's something which is, that also should be proven. The people are saying many old women are suffering. I am against any innocent person being arrested and put behind the bar. That's completely a violation of that person's human rights. So that person should not be arrested by the police who has not committed the crime. That discretion police will have to use. They should be trained in the law, and they must do that. But to just say that some people are in jail and all these stories have been spread around, media is writing about it, I think this is totally doing injustice to suffering women. Nowhere in the world 8,000 women are killed in 1 year for the want of some or the other material goods. Nowhere in the world it happens. We have to eradicate this practice, and in fact make the law more stringent if possible. And of course, because dispensation of justice takes so much time, it should be really fast-track court, so that everybody should be punished for having given and taken dowry and harassing.
Well, time for us to slip into another break. When we come back, we'll take this a little further, so don't go anywhere, as we'll be back in just a moment.